In the House, Democratic Congressman Kathleen Rice repeated her demand that colleague John Conyers, who's been serving since 1964, resign.
Conyers says it didn't happen. You say he should resign. Why?
Because enough is enough. At this point, what I am voicing publicly is what every single private citizen is saying across America. Why are the rules for politicians in Washington different than they are for everyone else?
They say innocent until proven guilty. Sure, the court of public opinion, pressure, private entities, they can make people do different things with different pressure points. But what do you make of that pushback? We
don't have any legal standard here. We are talking about the court of public opinion. We're talking about holding men accountable for their actions.
Meanwhile, more allegations coming out on him. Joining us now, Congressman Ron DeSantis. He's seen enough. He's a Republican representative in Florida, and he's moving on legislation to stop the payout of would-be lawmakers without us even knowing about it. Now, Congressman DeSantis, before we talk specifically about what bothers you and where we go from here, what are you proposing they take up in Washington when they get back to work?
Well, in terms of this issue, I think all of these settlements need to be made public. The American taxpayer has a right to know how their tax dollars are being used. If that money is being used to pay from a slush fund for misconduct of members of Congress or congressional staff, harassment charges, they need to know about it. We need to know how much was paid, who was it paid to, and who was the culprit. That is just, to me, a bare minimum.
So Conyers evidently took money out of his own coffers to pay it, but not his own pocket. But you're talking about a fund that almost nobody knew about, it seems, even on Capitol Hill, that had $17 million in payouts at 264 settlements in total over the last 20 years. That reported by the Washington Post. Now, not all of this was harassment, sexual harassment or sexual misconduct. But we didn't even know about this, and it's our money.
Exactly. And I think that that's right, Brian. I think a lot of these claims will be things like disability, age discrimination. There will be harassment claims, and the American people have a right to know all of that. And I think going forward, though, you have to deal with that fund, make it public, defund it going forward for any misconduct. But I do think you need a Conyers rule that would prevent a member of Congress for doing what he's purportedly did, which was effectively pay a settlement from his office budget. We all members, we get office budgets. The purpose of that office budget is to represent our constituents, not to pay settlements from misconduct. So I think that needs to be barred as well. And then I think any member who committed misconduct, if they had this public money paid, I think the member should be on the hook for that. I think they should have to reimburse the taxpayer with interest. That is a fair thing to ask.
Congressman, what do you think about what Kathleen Rice, the Democratic Congresswoman from New York, said he needs to resign? Do you feel the same way?
Well, I think if we do the transparency, then we'll get all the facts on this. Well, from what I've read, I think that that clearly is unacceptable conduct for somebody to be serving in Congress with. But I will tell you this, Brian, this issue is one of a lot of problems when you have people that have served in Congress for 50 years like he has. I think this is a great example of why we need term limits in Congress in addition to these other reforms.
And the latest accusation comes from Melanie Sloan. She's a lawyer with Conyers on the Judiciary, working with Conyers on the Judiciary Committee. She says that she was called up to his place where he was walking around in his underwear. That is a third person to walk around. Made her increasingly anxious going to work every day. He was actually rude to her as well. So Conyers has a pattern of behavior that was kept quiet for years. I never even heard this whispered. Did you know about some of these things, the way he treated many of the people that work for him?
No, I mean, I didn't. I would really not have a reason to. I didn't necessarily travel in his circles. My understanding, though, is as this stuff has come out, that there's a lot of people who will now say, hey, we've heard some of this stuff. A lot of it's at the staff level because you have a lot of staff for him that were allegedly mistreated. And so that's not the way you're supposed to run your office. But I think what you're going to see now, if we can get this stuff made public, you're going to see a lot of stuff come out, Brian. But you know what? We need the truth on all of this.
Yeah, and so far leadership says they didn't know anything about it. And if you get the money, in some of these cases $27,000, you're also told you take the money, you got to keep your mouth shut. This way, nobody ever finds out about it. Congressman Ron DeSantis, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.